All right, welcome to another edition of the Fifth Down Show. Right here, we are exclusively on YouTube today. As we are waiting on my special guest to call in. On today's show, we are going to be discussing. We're still doing the Super Bowl, and of course, if you followed this channel before, you know how we break down the Super Bowl. We break it down. We did the game on our last episode. We broke down the game on the field with Niners faithful, breaking down everything that happened on the field. But as you know, the Super Bowl is more than just the game on the field. And to do that, we will be having Cousin Brianna on to discuss the commercials and the halftime show. And of course, there will be a couple other nuggets in there that we need to discuss as we get going here. But until she calls in, well, you'll just have to deal with me. I know how much nobody wants to do that. But as it is, if you are watching live, if you're watching the live show, we'll bring it up here. We got the StreamYard is here. If you wish to join the discussion, by all means, click it on, get on the StreamYard and join us as we are here. We got our boy Sick Diggy on the show, and Diggy, always good to hear from you. We're doing well, man. We're doing great. We had a great NFL season, some good time off. Now it's time to get back to the main stuff, back to everything that we do. So anyway, we talked about the Super Bowl in the last episode. I talked about how uneventful the Super Bowl was, and it kind of was the same way with the commercials as I thought. And it might just be that I didn't really pay attention to the commercials during the Super Bowl. I didn't really pay attention to them. But nothing really struck me from a standpoint of where it excited me to a level that I just had, where it was just something that I had to see. Most of the commercials that I saw, one, they were either spoiled beforehand where I had seen them before, or B, I kind of watched them after the fact, and not seeing them in the moment was kind of like, okay, well, that was kind of cool. That was kind of an interesting one. One of the things that really hit me watching the commercials, and maybe this is just me getting older, maybe it's just me being more cynical about the look, but it was kind of like, what's the narrative that they were pushing during the Super Bowl? And you saw a lot. I saw a lot of travel commercials, a lot of airline commercials, a lot of Airbnb. So it kind of got to me that it kind of got me the point. Maybe they're trying to push people traveling again. Maybe the travel industry was kind of trying to say, hey guys, remember us? Like, remember how you used to travel? Remember how people used to go places? So that was kind of my thing, and so that was kind of my take from it. And we have a guest, so let's bring Sick Diggy. Sick Diggy, how you doing, man?
Hello. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and I hope everything's going well. As I said to a lot of people, I took a season off just to have a season to myself, to kind of regain the love of the game of football and everything that is happening. So I kind of just been just been steering well. And once the Super Bowl came, I said, now we got to get back in. So we're doing everything. So just to catch up with you, how's everything going with you, man?
Well, I had my ups, my downs, my lefts, my rights, my ins, my outs. So it's been pretty much a slow period, but not much to complain about. And don't mind me, I'm just having a hard time talking because I do have a couple of canker sores in my mouth, especially on the tongue that hurts. But yeah.
Uh, well, everything sounds good on this end, bro. So
That's cool.
all right. So first off, but before my special guest calls in,
Okay.
you're welcome to stay and join in the discussion with us. But before we get to all that, because when she calls in, we're gonna go right to commercials and all that stuff. Did you watch the Super Bowl? What did you think of this? What did you think of the Super Bowl this year?
I didn't watch the game. I just purposely avoided it and would prefer to watch the highlights. So I checked the highlights on the NFL's YouTube channel, and I thought my thing was like, it was going to be a close game, and it was going to come down to who was going to make the least mistakes, who was going to make that one mistake that could turn the tide and everything. In the case of the Niners, it was that missed field goal, which opened the door for the Chiefs to tie the game and go into overtime.
Well, I'm gonna correct you on that. You mean the blocked extra point?
That too.
It wasn't a miss. It was a block. You didn't miss. The ball got blocked. We talked about, and the only reason I correct you is because we talked about it. We talked about it at length on the last episode with Niners Faithful. By the way, I have to say, great guest, Niners Faithful, awesome. Everything Niners, go through Niners Faithful if you're listening to this. Well, yeah, we talked about that. The blocked extra point was yes, it was a bad play for the 49ers. It was a great play by the Chiefs. That's what it was.
Yeah. And it was that one play that turned the tide of the game right there. If they had scored that extra points, that would have changed the dynamic of the game. But since it was missed, Mahomes and the company capitalized. They go into overtime, and they win. And with a game, and they win the Super Bowl right there.
Now I'm surprised. I'm surprised that they even had highlights from this game.
Right.
I watched the game, and I said it last week. It was one of the most uneventful Super Bowls that I've ever seen. It was really bland the way the Super Bowl played out. I didn't see there was no play that happened that I jumped out of my chair or that I was like, wow, that was a really great play. It was really just kind of generic. It was kind of generic the entire way through. So I'm just surprised that highlight reel must have been like 7 minutes long.
Yeah, more like 10, 15. More like 10, 15, but then again,
there wasn't anything to it.
I mean, you saw a couple of sacks here and there. It was basically two teams whose defenses were trying to contain the offenses as much as possible. So it was a low-scoring game. It wasn't a big blowout. The battle was in the trenches, like any classical football game it should be.
And I thought the biggest mistake, which a lot of people didn't really talk about. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. We talked about it last week. I told Niners Faithful right to him. I said the biggest mistake was taking the ball in overtime, taking the ball and giving Pat Mahomes a chance. Once you kick that field goal, Pat Mahomes now knows I got 4 downs to work with. You give Pat Mahomes 4 downs, he's going to beat you at some point. Rather than kick him the ball, and then if you stop him 3 times, they got to punt. because they have to preserve the lead. If they know, hey, if we punt the ball, the game's over, we have to go for it. It's an extra down that your defense has to play. And that I felt was the big mistake that the 49ers made, was taking the ball and trying to go down the field, because you're not going to stop Pat Mahomes 4 straight plays.
Pat Mahomes has been here.
You can stop him 1 or 2 plays here. You're not going to stop him 4 plays in a row.
Pat Mahomes has been to the dance at least 3 times? This is like their 4th Super Bowl. They won 3 of the 4.
Yeah.
And he knows what to do in these situations. He's going to show his veteran he's a veteran. He's showing his experience.
That's another thing. That's another thing that I brought up at the end of, a lot of people I saw, oh, the Kansas City Chiefs were Super Bowl champions. No. They're back-to-back Super Bowl champions. A lot of people just seem to gloss over the fact that they've won back-to-back Super Bowls like that. That's not a hard thing to do.
Not since the Broncos or the Cowboys in the 90s, or did the Patriots ever win back-to-back Super Bowls?
I'm pretty sure the Patriots must have won back-to-back Super Bowls. To get 6, you had to have won back-to-back.
6 in how many attempts?
Let's see. I think they were 6-3.
No. Wait a minute. They lost to the Giants. Remember,
6-3. They lost to the Giants twice, and they lost to the Eagles.
Yes.
I want to say 6-3. I have to acknowledge someone real quick, and Mel, always love to see you. And so we make sure that we highlight all of our comments, and I'm so glad you're watching. And as Sick Diggy and I talk about the Super Bowl and talk about the game that was, and of course we'll put the link back up there. As I said, yeah, back-to-back Super Bowls. That's an
accomplishment in itself.
That's the feat. Back-to-back Super Bowls. And I know why people gloss over it. People gloss over it because the Chiefs didn't have a Super Bowl season. No. They didn't have that, Super Bowl champion type season. They kind of had a rocky regular season. So the fact that they won the Super Bowl was kind of like, oh my God. But no, back-to-back Super Bowls needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed. Yeah, that used to be like a big thing. Like the T-shirts would say back-to-back. They just say Super Bowl champs on them. Like they just did it once. And so it doesn't make sense to me that they would do that.
But this year, what was improved about the Chiefs this year? Their defense. I mean, of course, some of their offensive weapons were not there anymore. Juju's gone, Tyreek Hill's gone. But they still got Travis. And right now the question is, will Travis stick around, and will they go for a 3-peat?
I was gonna say the biggest thing for the biggest improvement of the Kansas City Chiefs was in their fan base.
Oh, don't get me started on that one. if there's going to be a certain individual we're going to be talking about, I'm just going to look at this and say, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, because I know if this relationship, because a certain Miss Thing, who we always had to zoom in the luxury box. You know what? Michael Blackson was right. She doesn't know anything about football. She always had a tendency to just chill at the wrong time. She'd be like, "Hey, sit down. It's only halftime. What you doing?"
That's fine.
What are you doing?
You know what? That's fine. I love how everybody got everybody I watched the game with, and I watched it with a lot of 49ers fans. So obviously they did not want to see her at all during the game. But every time they showed her, everybody would be like, "Oh my God, they're showing her on TV," and I'm like,
and she's enjoying it.
I'm like, and I will invoke the name. She's Taylor Swift. Of course, they're going to show her. Like any producer worth a dime. If I were producing the Super Bowl, I would have had her picture in picture the entire time because it's the freaking Super Bowl.
Like, not consent where she's going to steal Travis Kelce's thunder.
No, Travis Kelce's holding on to her. Let's be honest. He's holding on to her coattails in that relationship. He's riding her coattails. She's in. There are movies made about her. Okay, she had a movie about her this summer. So, Travis Kelce's holding on for dear life, as he should. But just as an entertainment person. As somebody who studies entertainment the way I do, any producer worth their weight would show her as much as possible because people. And I know I'm really prefacing and just waiting on my when my cousin gets on. My cousin is one of the biggest Swifties of all time.
Yeah.
I know she loved it. And that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is
she's gonna be rocking a number 87 Kansas City Chiefs jersey.
The fans of football are watching the football game. Everybody else is tuning in for everything else going on with the Super Bowl. I have no problem with CBS showing her. I had no problem with them cutting to her after every big play. I had no problem with them focusing on Kelce and Swift after the game. I have no problem with that. I totally understand it.
I know, but sometimes, when you overdo it, you overdo it. That's all I'm saying. There's got to be my thing is I remember there was a lot of people a lot of black women who were saying, when it came to the Super Bowl, I'm just going to watch the halftime show because, they all love them some Usher.
Well, the halftime show, that's kind of why I'm waiting on Brianna because she needs to break this down. A, because I didn't give a damn about the halftime show. Two, Usher, look, Usher, if it comes on the radio, okay, cool. Like I'll hear it. I'm not exactly the biggest Usher fan, so I can't really say whether it would. But watching from the look of the performance, I was, again, same thing as the game. Nothing really stood out for me to go, yeah, that was a Super Bowl halftime show. Like, to me, it was like, all right, he sang a couple songs. Like, I didn't know if he brought any special guests out. I didn't know who they were, so they didn't affect me.
Well, Alicia Keys was among them.
Alicia, I did see Alicia Keys. I do remember Alicia Keys. And
there was a couple of memes that came out that that came out of that. One was like talking about working and you're hanging out with the work spouse and shit. Excuse my French.
I have to address this comment that just came in, and I will say this, Mel. Always love to have you, and you not understanding much of what we're saying. We don't understand. I don't understand much of what I'm saying, so don't worry about it. You're not missing out. You're not missing out on much, Mel. But we love having you here.
May I inquire about Mel, if it's all right with you? Because I'm a little intrigued. Who is this character? Who is this individual?
Mel is a dear friend of mine from Colombia.
Colombiana, okay.
Yeah. Right. So, that's where she comes from, and we're glad to have her watching. And listening to the show, and of course she'll give me the updates on how the show went. And of course she always critiques my the look of my show. So
it could have been worse. I mean,
that's how we go.
Yeah, me personally, I was also preoccupied with a lot of things because this past like few weeks, around the time the playoffs were going, NFL playoffs were taking place, and me being a soccer fan, I was focused on two major tournaments. One was the Asian Cup, which was being held in Qatar, and then of course you had the African Cup of Nations that was held in the Ivory Coast. And both finals were held on the same day or on the same weekend. So that was pretty cool. Just watching the highlights of those tournaments and such.
Wow. And Ivory Coast, huh?
Côte d'Ivoire, as they would insistently call themselves, because they prefer the French version of their name because they were a French colony. So they say, Je suis de Côte d'Ivoire. I'm like, which means the Ivory Coast. What is the problem?
Was Drogba playing in that?
No, Didier Drogba is long since retired, but he was there. But the final was between the host nation, Ivory Coast, and Nigeria, and Didier Drogba was in the stands in one of the private booths, and Nigeria scored in the first half thanks to William Troost-Ekong, but when Frank Ketia equalized for Ivory Coast, they swing the camera to Didier Drogba, and he's out of his seat, just going buck wild because they equalized. And then when Sebastian Haller, who scored the winner for Ivory Coast, and it was all over. And as soon as the final whistle blew, Didier Drogba, also another former Ivorian international, Wilfred Bony. They got out of their seats. They were able to come down to the pitch, and they got to celebrate with some of the players because some of those players will tell you they grew up idolizing Didier Drogba, and he's been retired for quite some time, So
Drogba was my guy because I was I'm a Chelsea supporter as they say in the football world. So Drogba was he was kind of the reason I chose Chelsea because I didn't have any stake in that game, but I was watching one and I saw Drogba. Once I saw him, I was like, this is my guy. I'm rooting for these guys now.
Yeah. So, Drogba retired from you see, like most players, they always have two retirements. Okay.
And I know he played for the World Cup. He played for Ivory Coast in the World Cup. That's the only reason I knew.
He captained their World Cup side in 2006. That's when the first time they qualified. The 2010 World Cup, he also was their captain. Although he came into that tournament with a broken arm. A little mishap in the pre-match tournament, in the pre-tournament matches. And I think he took place. I think he also participated in the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. But after that, he retired, and he was in the stands for the 2015 African Cup of Nations, and he was just going bananas when Ivory Coast won the tournament there. But of course, they had to win it on penalties against Ghana, which was heartbreaking for the Ghanaians. But But hey, since you mentioned you're a Chelsea fan, have you ever been to the UK?
No, I haven't.
I bet you would probably want to check out Stamford Bridge, which is in West London. That's the home stadium of Chelsea.
Oh, I would love to see it. I would love to see and I have to say it because we do have it here. It's soccer over here. I would love to see a soccer game. I would love to see an English Premier soccer match.
Premier League. English Premier League, yeah.
There's a total difference between watching a Premier League match versus an MLS match, and
night and day.
and the gap is closing. MLS
Mm-hmm.
they're improving. They're getting there.
Yeah,
But
they're getting there. It's a gradual process.
there's nothing like Premier League.
No, the Premier League they've been the league when it comes to professional soccer leagues. The Premier League has always been the league since their inception back in 92, 93. And they've been at the forefront of a lot of things regarding the evolution of the game, especially on the business end, because issues regarding leagues with broadcasting rights and everything, uh, their brands, because it's not just a club, it's not just clubs, it's just also brands as well. So their logos, and emblems, their jerseys sell overseas. They have overseas fan clubs and everything. The only other league that could match them to an extent is Spanish La Liga, but of course that's been dominated by two major clubs, Real Madrid and Barcelona. Italy, you have some of the big power names. I grew up watching the Italian Serie A league, of course, but these leagues have always been. But the Premier League has always been head and shoulders above everybody else when it comes to like where they brought how the reach they have, not just in the UK but all over Europe, all over Africa, all over the world. So yeah, I
Oh
understand
yeah,
what you mean.
I've told this story before. I used to work at an international. I used to work at a camp that had an international staff,
And
and
you mentioned that story, I remember.
the arguments over Manchester United versus Man City.
Hmm.
The arguments that people would get in over that were epic. They were
The Midland
epic.
Derby, yeah, the East
It
Midland
was
Derbies.
it was so good. It was so good just watching these guys go back and forth, and just being at the bar and watching them go back.
Yeah.
Like the game wouldn't even be on. They wouldn't even be playing. They would just be talking about like a previous game that happened or a game that's coming up. And it would just the arguments would just be outstanding. And everyone would be like, "Why are you guys getting so heated?" And I'd be like, "Keep it going." I'd be that guy that like chimes in the argument's dying down. I just chirp in to just spark it back up and see it.
It's not just that. It's not just Manchester United versus Manchester City. You'll see this if it's like Liverpool versus Everton because they're crosstown rivals. Or if you go to London, it's either Fulham and Chelsea because they're on the west. They're in the west end of London. Or if you go to the north side, it's Tottenham versus Arsenal. Or if it's on the east side, you got like teams like in the central, you got teams like Crystal Palace, Queens Park Rangers, and such. Everybody's got their derbies. Or if you go to Birmingham, it's Birmingham City versus Aston Villa. The rivalries are big. Crosstown rivalries, which are called derbies. They're so important to those cities and whatnot. Or sometimes if you want the major matches, like when the big clubs like Chelsea goes against Man United or Arsenal or against Man City, the matches are going to be heated. It's going to be ugly. They're going to be because especially like in the final games of the season where every win is crucial. Whether we're talking about winning the league title or trying to qualify for next season's Champions League.
That's what I like. I like the way, and I wish more professional leagues would adopt the kind of the way that they run their thing, where it's like if you're just not good for year after year after year, eventually they just go, you're done. Like you're not in this league. You're not in this league anymore. Like you go down, play people who are closer to you in talent. And maybe you can come back in a couple years if you guys get good enough. Like I love
the relegation.
I love the fact that they kick people out of the league for not being good.
The last three teams, if you finish in the bottom three, if you're the last three teams at the end of the season, you get demoted to the division below. But the teams who made the top three in the division below get promoted to the top division next season. And it's always high drama. It's always like everybody's asking, who's going to get relegated this season? Which teams are going to survive to see to be on the top next season, because it's not just about, because one thing people forget, the broadcast, everybody gets paid equal amounts when it comes to broadcasting deals, because everybody gets their games broadcasted if you're in the top division. Lower division, they get their matches is broadcasted, but it's not the same because the focus is on the top division. Same thing if you go to Spain, you go to Italy, all the leagues in Europe, it's the same deal. You see this in Africa, you go to parts of Asia. Hang on, excuse me. But anyway, we were discussing American football here. We just went a little sidetracked, but
hey, that's how this show goes. We're supposed to be talking Super Bowl and commercials, and what are we talking about? We talk about football.
Well, here's a commercial. Here's a commercial I want to talk about. And this is from a previous Super Bowl. Will Ferrell wanting to punch Norway in the face.
Seeing that you're from Norway.
But this is what Will Ferrell we're talking about, so we know it's going to be absolutely comedic. Because remember what happens. They try to get to Norway. Him, Kenan Thompson, and another person. They get lost. They end up in Finland. He ends up in Sweden, and I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? And I remember there were a lot of Norwegian companies who took that commercial and ran with it. And they were starting thinking, they didn't get offended, but there was like a couple of cheese commercials regarding like, hey, Will, we understand how you feel. And if you want to come to Norway, you're more than welcome to come, and we have cheese for you. They learned how to take a joke. But I think that's
important. I think you bring up an important part. Being able to make fun of yourself. I'll go into one of the commercials that I remember from because we are almost 2 weeks removed from the Super Bowl, so I kind of have to remember which ones were there. I tried to make a list of them, and I just stopped paying attention I stopped paying attention to the commercials after a while because I just didn't care. But the one that really stuck with me from this year was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold being able, he did the State Farm one where he said, every time he said neighbor, he's neighbor, and they kept saying no, it's neighbor. And
my neighbor.
And he kept saying it in his Austrian accent, which was awesome. It's just so Arnold. But he was able to make fun of himself. I think that's important to how effective your commercial is. Because the more serious ones, I was like, Jesus Christ, I don't care about this anymore. Like they go on, they just go on and on. And it seems like they just go on and on and on. Meanwhile, Arnold's sitting there making fun of himself, having a good time with it, and it kind of made that commercial last a little bit longer. The same thing with we just talked about soccer. That they had Beckham and Posh Spice.
Mr. and Mrs. Beckham.
They did the Uber Eats, and the whole Uber Eats thing is if you remember Uber Eats, if you remember something, you forget something else, and he's like, weren't you part of a group? You're the Pepper Girls, and so they've had a whole thing making fun of the Spice Girls, and it was cool. It was. I mean, obviously, it was great to see.
You just had to bring the girl power reference here. Now I have to go completely left, because now we have to go onto I have to go on a little tangent, a little piece of history from the Premier League I got to tell you about. Now, this is back when David Beckham was a member of Manchester United. And he just started dating Victoria Adams, who would later become Mrs. David Beckham, Posh Spice. Well, at this time, Beckham, along with Ryan Giggs, Nikki Butt, Paul Scholes, as well as Gary and Phil Neville were the core was this youth core of Manchester United at the time of the 90s called Fergie's Fledglings, and they were the new version of Fergie's Fledglings. In reference to Sir Alex Ferguson's crop of young players who joined the team straight from their academies. But here's the problem. British tabloids being what they are, they were focusing on a group of young players playing for Liverpool. Those would be players like Steve McManaman, Robbie Fowler, David James, Stan Collymore was included with them, Jamie Redknapp. I don't know why Paul Ince was including them, and a couple other guys I'm missing. And this group of players that were playing for Liverpool at the time were getting hammered and being criticized for their lackluster performances because this is when players were getting paid big money and they wanted to live the rock star lifestyle. And of course, there were unfounded rumors that one of the players, Robbie Fowler, was dating another member of the Spice Girls, Emma Button, Baby Spice. And because of that rumor, the tabloids would derogatorily insult these young players from Liverpool and call them the Spice Boys because they were just. Deets, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm fascinated by this story.
I mean, they were called the Spice Boys because they were so focused on the glitz and glamour of being footballers. Because this is when players were getting paid big time money due to the broadcasting deals. They were all about the flash, the fast cars, the flashy lifestyle. Instead of putting the work on the field and score and winning games and winning tournaments and winning trophies. Unlike the work ethic that was being imposed over in Manchester, which is why Manchester United was so dominant in the 90s. Except for 3 particular seasons. But, that's an interesting thing I just wanted to mention,
Well,
you had to mention the Spice Girls, I had to mention the Spice Boys. I have a lot. There's a lot of friends. There's some friends of mine who are Liverpool supporters. One of them I almost got into a relationship with. Lovely young lady, but it was not meant to be. But I can't help but just rub that in their faces just to tease them. Consider they like to rub it. A lot of love my mishaps.
But it's like anybody. It's like anybody in the NBA with the Kardashians. Anybody that dates a Kardashian, immediately their career just goes absolute south.
Lamar Odom, Tristan Thompson. Anybody else we got to mention?
Anybody else who dates a Kardashian? I just remember if you were connected to a Kardashian, your career just immediately exploded.
Thank God for Marlon Wayans and that joke he had in his special called Wokish on Netflix. We said, there's something about the Kardashians that just seem to suck the talent out of a person through the place where the sun don't shine. It just took the life out of that way.
It's not like it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was like over and over. When things happen over and over again, that's when they become. They always say like first time, second time, third time's a trend. Like when it's happened multiple times, that's when you can start. That's when you can start that's when you can start putting everything together and figuring it out. So. But that's what I was thinking the whole time you were telling that story. I was like, it's like the NBA. I was like NBA with the Kardashians. It's about the same. Sounds about right.
You just never learn. Stay the hell away from certain individuals because they're gonna be bad news. That's why I never really saw the appeal of certain things. That's why I stay away from reality TV for the most part.
Yeah, that's why.
I will,
That's the reason I never dated a Kardashian. That's it right there. That's it.
good answer.
That's the reason. That's the reason. That's the reason I stayed away from the
Yeah.
Kardashian.
Anyways, going back to commercials, I remember, was it 1990? Boomer Esiason, when he was still quarterbacking for the Bengals. It was a Super Bowl commercial he was involved in. The last time I checked, it was no, was it? Or was it during the season? It was for Diet Coke. Because remember at that time, I remember this is like early 90s. This is 1990. People like the battle was between Diet Coke was over Diet Coke versus Diet Pepsi. Hell, I remember another commercial involved two people, Ray Charles
I know
and Joe
exactly.
Joe Montana.
Yep.
They asked him to sample, and both of them were both of them were like, okay, I'm gonna try the Diet Pepsi. Not bad. Okay, let me try the Diet Coke. But they switched it on them like, okay, who's the wise guy who pulled that on me? And I remember in the case of Joe Montana, it was Ray Lewis who pulled, who switched the cans on him just like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go the era you're talking about. The reason Diet Coke took it over was because they had an entire commercial in Batman 1989. 1989, they had an entire commercial at the beginning of the movie.
They did a commercial with Paula Abdul at the height of her fame.
I mean,
they weren't BSing.
I mean, you want great marketing. They spent the entire beginning of Batman 1989, the original Batman that everybody goes to. The entire first 10 minutes of the movie is just a commercial for Diet Coke. It was awesome.
Was Prince involved in that one? Was Prince involved in that commercial? Didn't they have a commercial with Prince?
Prince might have been. He might have had his own commercial, but it was Alfred. The one I'm talking about was just Batman. It was just Batman driving around in the Batmobile, and then he gets home.
Okay, all right.
Alfred had the Diet Coke ready for him.
The
Bat computer. That was the entire scene was set up just for that payoff, for the payoff of here you get a Diet Coke. Like that was it. That was the only reason. It had nothing to do with anything else. It was just a commercial for Diet Coke. Now it was
well, in the words of Chris Bass, what in the old types of blue hell?
It was fantastically done.
For what it's worth, Deeds, it's good to see you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's great. It's great to hear from you. Great to talk to you again. And I'm hoping to get back. I'm hoping to get back to doing more of the morning stuff. But night shift killed me.
It can take a toll on you just because you have to change your entire sleep schedule and everything.
It's one of the reasons that we took our break. That we took our a little bit. I want to say I think we took about a 6 month break. One of the reasons is just because it was getting to be too much. Having to pay attention to everything was getting out of control. My body was just shutting down. But the other reason,
you did what you had to do.
The main reason is the thing I want to talk about right now. Is the main reason I took a break is because in the last 6 months I have been writing a television script, and So
Oh,
I've been putting all of my focus into that. And that is where this channel and this show is going to go.
oh, okay.
We are going to dive into script because I got to tell you and this has to tie into the Super Bowl commercials and like I said Brianna has not been feeling well lately, so she may have turned out for the New York, or she's been busy. So, but Brianna, if you're listening, or if you listen to this, you're more than welcome to come on anytime, and if she calls in, we'll take the call. But anyway, so I've been working on writing a script. I have been and the reason I came back to try to do these, and we're gonna do them in the off season here. The television shows and movies that I have been watching have been absolute garbage. I mean, garbage.
Tell me about it.
Garbage writing, and it's not just that they look terrible. And from a writing aspect, and from spending the last 6 months trying to perfect just the stupid episodes I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
Just the amount of effort that I've had to put in, and I watch the shows, and it seems like they're not even trying. They're not even putting in a tenth of the effort that I have been doing. That I read my script. I've had other people read my script, and every time I get stuck, and I'm like, I don't know where to go with this episode, and I give it to somebody, and I usually give it to my guy Henry, because he's usually at the bar with me while I'm writing it. And he's usually there, and it was actually funny. There was one time I was just getting so mad because I didn't know how to end an episode. I didn't know what to write for the ending, and I was getting so mad. And Henry just looks up and goes, "Dude, you need to put that down. You need to stop. Just need to stop and think about it for a minute." And I was like, "Here, you read it. I'll think." And he read the script, and then the ending came to me, and I was able to write it down. So Henry's kind of my co-writer on this right now, because he's whenever I get stuck, I just give it to him. And
or Muse.
Usually something will come to me. But that being said, that's when I give it to him, and I'm like, does this even make sense? Like, I just spent 2 hours writing this. Does this even make sense? These writers for television shows, it seems like they're not even trying. They don't even want it to make sense anymore. And one of the biggest ones what we're going to do on this channel is we're going to talk about shows that I've watched recently. And I'm going to prove to you that this is not everybody always says, "Oh, it's bad writers." It's not bad writing. It's not bad writing. This is deliberate. This is the way they're writing these shows this is the way that they want them to be. It has to be. It has to be that bad. And I'm going to show you, because I'm going to show you, I'm going to take a couple scenes from shows, rewrite them into something that makes sense, and you're going to see, holy crap, if they had just done this, it would have worked. Case in point, Rings of Power. Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings show.
Mm-hmm.
Why they wrote their character to be the most hated person. If you write your main character to be hated, your show is going to die. When you could have just written it to make us like her. You could have made people like her. You could have shown her being a good person. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to take one scene, flip one scene, and it would have changed the entire show. Another one, Ahsoka, the new Star Wars show, which Star Wars is dying. By the way, Star Wars is dying, and it seems that the people in charge of Star Wars just want to keep killing it. So they put out shows like Ahsoka, where the protagonist literally does nothing for the first 20 seconds of the show. Stands there and does nothing. You can't have that. You can't tell me that they wrote in this stand here and stare at the camera for 20 seconds. You can't tell me that's in the script. If it is, it's horrible. This is what I'm talking about with these shows. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Speaking of shows, I'm sure you're familiar of what happened with Henry Cavill after parting ways with
The Witcher.
On,
I am very aware of what happened with The Witcher.
Well, you know what happened to him afterwards. He inked a deal. I think it's either with I think it's Amazon. I think it's Amazon, Apple TV or Amazon Prime. One of them.
I think it's out. I think. Are you talking about Warhammer?
Yes, Warhammer 40,000.
I think it's I think it's Apple TV. It might be Amazon. Well, it's one of the 8. Look, as Gary from Nerdrotic would say, Apple and Amazon are they're running Hollywood right now. Apple and Amazon. That's it.
But yes, now
they're producing everything right now.
Now we all know, for anybody who's wondering what I'm talking about, Henry Cavill was adamant and lobbied to play the main character, the main protagonist in the Witcher series, as he is somebody who is very passionate about the franchise. He's read all the novels, he's played the game, and he was insistent that he wanted them to stay true to the source as much as possible. Now, prior to Cavill leaving, one of the writers was just as passionate because he read the books, he read the novels. I think also played the game, but other members of the staff and the showrunner were adamant they were not going to do that. In fact, they just threw in their faces that they don't care. And that writer had to leave. Cavill, after the second season, decided to leave. Now, without getting smeared in the process, they just trying to say, "Oh, he was difficult to work with. He was doing this, down the third. He was inappropriate with some of his cast members," which is completely untrue. Cavill is one of the most professional people, one of the most consummate professionals you will meet on any set. He is but he's also very much a nerd as well as a computer geek. He loves, and he's a well-rounded person, multifaceted, well-rounded person. So he leaves. He departs with Netflix, and they replaced him with Liam Hemsworth, not Chris Hemsworth, but Liam Hemsworth. And in his hiatus, he can't do Superman because DC's not interested with him anymore. Witcher's out of the question, but he gets a call from one of the A's, like we said, either Amazon Prime TV or Apple TV, and they ask him if he's interested in doing Warhammer 40,000. Now, people don't know Warhammer 40,000 is a tabletop game from the UK that was developed in the 1980s, and Cavill grew up playing Warhammer's 40,000. And he was on board. He said, let me get on board. So not only is he going to star in the series, he's also one of the producers. So he has a level of control of the direction of the series. So I'm sure he's involved in the writing, as well as bringing in some people who are also just as passionate about this. Because what you don't want to do is alienate the core audience. Because the people who wanted to watch The Witcher are people who are fans of the novels, fans of the video games, but you alienated them, and then you just went completely left with all this because you had an agenda. With this 40K project, they want to stay true and give something that the fans are going to love, and quite possibly bring in interest to the franchise, to the IP, and people are going to say, you know what? Let me check out this 40 Hammers things. What is that really all about?
I mean, that's the goal, and that should be the goal from the beginning. and The Witcher is a complete. It is the best example of you have a built-in IP, you have a built-in fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Your initial job should be catering to that fan base, not because you know it should be done because you're writing a Witcher show because you love The Witcher, because you liked The Witcher, you like the books, or you liked the game. That's why you should be writing a Witcher show, just because. But even if you're not, your goal as a writer should be to get the Witcher fan base so pumped about your show that they're promoting it for you. They're out there
word of mouth.
They're out there telling their friends who aren't Witcher fans. They're out there going, "Hey, there's this show. You gotta watch it. I love The Witcher. I love playing the game, but this show is really good. Here, check it out." And that would get them. It just helps you that much more. And they went the complete opposite, where they said, "Screw the fans, screw the books. We're gonna do what we want. We're just gonna steal the name of The Witcher, put it on. Yeah, we're gonna have Henry Cavill playing." And I forget the guy's name. I'm not a big Witcher fan, but
Liam Hemsworth.
But they had Cavill in the main role, and they go, "We're gonna push you to the side and push Yennefer's story to the front." And Cavill gave one of the best interviews I've ever seen, and because you could tell he really cares about the IP that he was working on, because he didn't want to disparage them. He didn't want to come out and just say these people are hacks and they don't know what they're doing. So he came out and he said, "I have to find, these." He goes, they have a different vision of what this is. So I have to find my character and play the character within the story that they're telling, but I have to play it to a way that I forget the exact words that he used.
Was being diplomatic, basically.
But he basically said, these people are writing a different story, but I have to steer my character to be loyal to the lore and be loyal. I have to do that within the writing that they're giving me. And it was such a diplomatic way of basically saying, these people don't know what they're doing, but I have to do everything in my power to do it. And
there were a few scenes where he had to improvise in the dialogue or certain monologues. He had to improvise because what they gave him, he knew it would not work.
He wouldn't even monologue. He would just improvise. He would just make it up on the spot because he read what they wrote, and he's like, "No, this." And there was one I saw where
it was uncharacteristic of the character.
Where he's telling them they stopped the show because they stopped an episode because he started doing that, and they were like, "You have to read it," and he was like, "No, I'm not reading that." And he had to force it. And one of the people actually said, "Oh, he was so hard to work with. He was changing lines every day." And every Witcher fan was like, "Yeah, he was, because you don't know how to write, because you don't know what you're writing." Oh man, the wit, and now you've got Liam Hemsworth, and I guarantee you, I've heard Nerdrotic talking about this because he's into the Witcher, he's into the Witcher stuff, and we all know Gary's a big gamer. Little joke for the Nerdrotic fans out there, but he's Gary was saying this, and he's dead on. They're going to combine seasons 4 and 5. They're going to combine them into one season, and it's done. It's done. Liam Hemsworth is not going to be here. He's going to be around for about 6 episodes, and that's it. The Witcher is dead. The Witcher was Henry Cavill, was Henry Cavill and the lore of the game. Now they have none of that, and it's done. but they killed it.
You had a
They
good thing and you
absolutely
destroyed it.
killed it.
Just as bad as I'm sure season 2 of Velma will be a complete disaster. But
Well, season 2, it's already been. David Zaslav's already said no.
Good answer.
I can guarantee. If they get it, there's no way they get a season 2. There's no way. HBO doesn't have the money to be. HBO doesn't have the money. They don't have the money to burn. They can't burn money.
Or the tolerance.
Because they're already and because HBO is trying to sell Max. They're trying to sell that whole thing to somebody just to get their money back. So they're already
I still have a subscription with HBO Max. First of all,
HBO Max is really good. It's just all the companies that they've acquired. Warner Brothers is hemorrhaging money. Discovery, which is now on there, which is one of the reasons to have HBO Max is just for Discovery, because I watch Investigation Discovery all the time. I call it the Murder Channel. I watch all that stuff. So that's a reason to have that. I mean, that HBO is in trouble because they're trying to reboot Harry Potter. I mean, they're trying to reboot Harry Potter. And that's the home run. That's their home run.
Oh man,
they're gonna what they're gonna do, and I'm as a Harry Potter fan, I'm cautiously optimistic. What they're doing is they're taking all the movies, and what they're gonna do is I think they signed they're gonna do each season is gonna be a book. So each season is gonna be one of the movies, and they're gonna reshoot it to show, instead of having to cram all that stuff into like an hour long, an hour movie, they can now tell the entire story of the book. So they're gonna so it's not like they're just taking the movie and redoing it. They're gonna do it. Supposedly, they're gonna stay true to the book and expand on all the stories. I hope that's true, but as we've seen from recent Hollywood, I'm not buying. I'll let them prove it to me. All right, it looks like we lost Diggy there, but I am thanks to Sick Diggy for coming on. Thanks for spending as much time as we could. For everybody, this is how these things work. When you do things live, hey, if people show up, they show up. Sometimes they don't, and it happens. And I totally understand. I get where Brianna was coming from, but really the things I wanted to talk about with Brianna, and we'll have Brianna back. I'm sure she'll be back for the Star Wars discussion. But as I was just alluding to, I have been working on a script. I have been working on writing, and we're going to talk about certain aspects of Hollywood that there are so many of these programs, so many of these things that, and just earlier today, Disney came out and said, well, it's not our fault. It's not our fault for making. Oh, Diggy said he'll be back, so I'll just fill in the time. But Disney just said today. Oh, by the way, we're not making crappy movies. It's just the fans don't respect our movies. No, you're making garbage programs. And I'm going to use this channel to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm going to take Ahsoka and show you how Ahsoka could have been a great show, and show you how they ruined it, how they just decided to ruin it. And if I and and that's the reason that I'm getting into this. And just the amount of time that I've had to put into my script, to making sure that my script follows an agenda, that follows a that goes from plot A to plot B to plot C. Just making sure that all of that goes is such a lengthy process. You can't rush that process. When you rush it, that's when you get terrible shows. You get terrible writing. That's when you get convoluted nonsense, like you get in. That's when Sabine gets stabbed with a lightsaber and ends up fine the very next episode. These people aren't paying attention. They're not paying attention to the details. That's how you get a writer on. I won't even call it. I'm not even going to call it the show that it is. And for everybody out there, Echo on Disney Plus, or as I call it, the Maya Lopez show. The Maya Lopez show, where the writer and director comes out and says, oh, I don't want to do that. Where the writer and director not only comes out and maligns her whole thing, she comes out and says, you know what? This character Echo, she has terrible her powers in the comics are terrible. If you don't like the character you're writing, don't write it. That's it. If you don't respect the character in the comic, nobody's going to respect your show. And it showed in the it showed that they didn't care about this character. They didn't care about the character they were writing. They didn't care about Kingpin. They didn't care about the characters they inherited. That we sat there and said, this is the way this show is. And I brought up the Henry Cavill quote before. Vincent D'Onofrio said the exact same thing. Almost word for word, the exact same thing. He said, well, these writers have a vision, and I can only play the character I'm given. And I have to play the character to fit my character into their vision. And that's just a long-winded way of saying these people don't know who the character is, and I have to do it for them. And that was going to be my thing to talk about with Brianna. I wanted to talk to her because she is a big Star Wars fan. She is a bigger Star Wars fan than I am. I wanted to get her idea of Ahsoka. I wanted to know what she thought of the Ahsoka series, because I can tell you right now, Ahsoka was garbage. Ahsoka was terrible writing. It looked horrible. It was none of it made sense. None of it made sense. The dialogue was terrible, and everything about it was just god awful. And you think that's going to save Star Wars? You think that's going to be something that saves Star Wars? Terrible writing is not going to save you. You need talented writers who care about what you're writing. And Diggy is back with us. Let's bring him back in. Diggy, what's going on, man?
I had to switch phones. You know, there's always that misstep you have when you transition from 4G to 5G.
It's all good. So we were talking about I was just talking about IPs that they're hiring people who don't even like the thing. And I mean, I was just talking about Echo with the director literally saying, well, I read about her in the comics, and her powers in the comics are stupid, so we changed them. I were the head of Marvel, and the writer director came to, we're like, all right, we need to find a writer for this show. And they came in and they said, I read the comics, I read the character. She's stupid. I would be like, all right, you're not the writer for this show. We'll keep you in mind for another show, but you can't write this character because you think this character's stupid. And then they go out and write the show and change the character, and then they have the audacity. This is where my problem comes in. They have the audacity to say, we didn't like the character, so we changed him. So when the fans complain, hey, this isn't the character that we know, this is not what we were told, they go, well, the fans don't understand what we were trying to do. They blame the fans for the fact that they changed the character.
I'm sure in an interview they try to explain it, but I'm sure a lot of the fans were not happy with it, and they have every right not to be happy with it. In fact, I think fans should vote with their wallets, vote with their phones, vote with their payment apps or debit cards or however, whatever mode of exchange they do, or vote with their subscription. If you're not on board, don't do it. Hell, I remember when you had the new Snow White movie come out. And good God, Rachel Zegler with this had to be complete obnoxious. She's 22, but you would think somebody should have had a publicist with her telling her, don't say that. I'm sure there were times there was like this. I remember there was like a red carpet interview where she was just like saying all this down the third, talking crap about the original story and everything.
Not just the original story. We're talking about Snow White. We're talking about the original. That's the movie cartoon that put Disney on the map. That is still to this day the highest grossing cartoon movie of all time.
Animated movie, yeah, of all time.
And she went out and she goes out and says, well, it's outdated, and we changed it because we updated it for these sensibilities. Rachel Zegler has a great talent. Rachel Zegler, look, she is very talented, and I can say that because she tanked 2 movies at once. She has a special talent. She tanked not only Snow White, she tanked the Hunger Games real quick. She tanked 2 movies, and the Snow White one was still in production, and they had to pull it because they knew it was never gonna make anything. So they pulled that already.
How arrogant she was,
but she was also in the Hunger Games, and because everyone hated her over that, nobody went to see the Hunger Games prequel, which was a disaster from the beginning. But yeah, she's got like I said, she's got a special talent. She tanked 2 movies at once.
What are the chances she's gonna claim it was because everybody hates her for being Latina when the truth of the matter is, first of all, yes, you are Latina on your mother's side, Colombian to be exact. And you were born in Jersey, but your father's side, your last name Ziegler, that is Polish. The Snow White story is Eastern European origin. People forget that.
She will never work in. I'm not going to say never work. She'll never be the star of anything ever again because the way she tanked tanking 2 movies at once. Everyone, the minute they see her in anything, they're going to go, "Oh, that's the girl that tanked Snow White." That's immediately what they're going to go
the woman who took a dump on Snow White, who said a lot of the disparaging things. The one who was just being obnoxious for the cameras, so an entitled little brat. She's not an adult. She's not a complete adult. She's not fully matured.
Look who we got. Look who we got watching the show. Victor, thank you for coming along. Victor, thank you for being there.
No. That's not Victor. That's Vicola.
Vicola. In coming along. Thank you for being there, man. But I'm just saying, like,
the chat's open. You can come on up, Vic.
Yeah, as always, I just put the link on the screen. The line is open. We're just having an open conversation right now. It's weird because all of these shows that have just been so bad, and I don't know if you saw the Canadian version of Robin Hood. I don't know if you heard about that that calamity. That show was awesome. That show was awesomely bad. Basically, they took Robin Hood. Basically, they took the story of Robin Hood, decided to make instead of Robin, Robin, they decided to make it Robyn, and made the lead character a black female.
Oh, how edgy.
And not only that, a black Canadian female. So that's basically where they tried to go with that show. And it crashed. It crashed and burned. And as normal, of course, the director, who greatest name ever, Director X, who was the writer-director of the show, of course, when his show came out and everybody just laughed at it and mocked it, of course, he decided, no, it's not my show being crappy. It's not my writing that was terrible. It's these fans. It's these people commenting. They don't know. They don't know. They don't know good entertainment. This show was great, and he just maligned everybody involved and just said, no, they just don't like it because they don't like it because of racism. Well, no, they didn't like it because your show was written like crap. You wrote the characters like crap. You made the main character unlikable. And when your main character is unlikable, you can't sell the show.
Or relatable. The character was not relatable. That's why we go and see. That's why we're in love. We love certain franchises because we can relate to those characters, or there's something about those characters that inspire us. Those of us who were born in the '80s will tell you we had some of the best cartoons growing up.
Don't. No, you just went there. Oh, Jesus.
What?
Speaking of cartoons we grew up with, and look how this comes full circle. Super Bowl commercial for Disney Plus series X-Men 97. Holy Jesus. Holy Jesus. Disney, stop effing with my childhood. Stop it. Just stop. Stop messing with my childhood. I grew up on X-Men. I grew up on the X-Men cartoon. I watched X-Men. It's on Disney Plus. I watched the X-Men, the cartoon. I watched Night of the Sentinels just the other day. Okay? Mm-hmm. I still love that cartoon. That is one of the best cartoons of all time. And they took it, and in the trailer, they ran a trailer during the Super Bowl. The very first thing that comes out is the Daily Bugle comes out, and it's mutant fashion show, and it shows that it shows mutants in fashion friendly. You could tell it. I'm not going to mince words. It's meant to be. It's meant to show that they're in gay culture. That's what it's about. You don't need that in an X-Men show. You don't need that. Then they double down by making Morph, a character from the show. Oh, he's non-binary. First of all, I don't know what that means. Second of all, he's not binary. He's not anything. Morph is a shapeshifter. He's whatever he wants to be.
Ambiguous. He can transform.
And they made him. In X-Men '97, in the original, he's obviously a male character. If you look him up on Wikipedia, Morph is still qualified as male, but again, he's anybody he wants to be. In the show, he changes from his form. He changes to Rogue. He changes to Gambit. He can change into whatever he wants to be. So he's not any. He's not any of the whatever words they came up with. And again, I don't know what non-binary mean. I don't know what that means.
They did the same thing.
Sorry, I'm not up to the lingo. But he is not. He's nothing. He is whatever he wants to be. He can be any form he wants. That's his whole character.
They tried the same thing with a couple of DC characters. One of the Aquaman characters, they tried to make him gay, and then they tried to say that Aquaboy, yeah. And then they say that Tim Drake is bisexual. I'm like, what?
You can't make this stuff up. I mean, the comics have been doing this for years, and it's why comic books died. Comic books died because they drove into this. They drove into this woke garbage, and it's why things like the Rippaverse have taken off gangbusters, because Rippa started his own comic book company, and he made $1 billion in one day. Like if you just make something that's not going to force ideology down our throats, people are going to buy it in droves. People are going to go out. But you take a series that is, and I just watched a video on this.
Impose an agenda on it, which is not, which was at the end of the day isn't even relative to the characters involved. I mean, I remember back the previous deck, 2 years ago, Miles Morales. They tried to write him as being gay. Miles Morales, Superman, as being gay. I'm like, why?
Well, I mean, they did put all of that stuff into Across the Spider-Verse with a possible gay relationship of, Spider-Gwen is supposed to be in a bisexual relationship. She's got the pride flags all over her room, but again, I have to quote Nerdrotic. Miles Morales is Miles Morales. Yes, yeah, he's a Spider-Man. He's not the Spider. Peter Parker will always be Spider-Man. Always. You're not gonna remove that from the lexicon. But getting back to X-97.
Hopefully we don't get the stream canceled. That's what I hope.
We'll see.
But what I can say is but the thing is I remember a few years ago on Facebook, I saw a clip. Somebody put out an original IP for a comic book series. It involves one man leading a group of kids. And we're talking about kids with certain types of disabilities, physical, psychological. emotional, whatever. And and the point of this comic book was to inspire kids who have certain disabilities that they can overcome them, because that was the audience that that was the target audience for this comic book. In fact, one of the characters in there, the lead character, the leader of this group, who's an adult, is a man who suffers from mental health issues. What they wanted to do was they wanted to raise awareness and end the stigma about people with certain types of disabilities and have some type of issues like those with special needs and mental health. They had a character who's autistic. Yeah, a character who's disabled, but they didn't let their disabilities get in the way of them. They were able to overcome, and it's meant to be inspiring. It's not the potion agenda. It's meant to be inspiring. That's how you create a great comic book. Something that inspires people. Something that people can relate to. I mean,
And
I remember.
to go along with what you're saying, and
Mhm,
anybody who reads comic books, anybody who reads fantasy, anybody who reads science
mhm,
fiction, anybody
mhm,
who does these things, the way we grew up with it, and the way
mhm,
I'll go to the ultimate in comic books writing, Stan Lee. The way Stan Lee did his characters was, you find what you find. We're gonna write the comic so that it's ambiguous, so that you can put yourself in the comic, that you can put yourself
mhm,
in the character, and and you make the story. That's the way Stan Lee wrote the characters, was so that
mhm,
whatever it is you have, um whether it's a physical disability, whether it's a gender issue, whether it's any of these issues,
mhm,
any issue that you have out there, you can put that aside. You can throw yourself into the character, and you can use that.
mhm,
Now it seems now the writers think we have to tell everybody, they have to be this gender, they have to be this race, they have to be this, um and any, they have to have this disability, they have to have that, they have to have this, they have to tell us what it is, rather than us just inferring it, or us figuring it out. No, we have to physically state it to everybody. And once you do that, you push away 75% of your audience right off the rip,
you
because everybody's like,
alienate them
well, I
completely.
can't. And it's not that you can't identify with somebody like that, or you can't see somebody like that. It's not that you don't want to see that. It's that you don't, if you don't identify with it, you're going to go, I'm moving on, and I don't care. And that's what's happening with with these new with these new stories, with these new things that they're putting out. They want to pigeonhole it into a certain category, and guess what?
Exactly.
It doesn't work. That's never going to work. Just look at
Look what
everything that
happened.
come out.
I'll give you a good example. Look what happened when Kevin Smith put out the first season of Masters of the Universe
Oh God.
on Netflix. They got criticized. I remember we had a hangout, me and a couple friends, a couple mutual friends with Snowman. We were talking about that when we had a few jokes about it, but we kind of like we explained, okay, this is wrong. This is kind of when season two, and of course they had to modify what's the face character. Names are lost to me now, but they had to salvage it in season two. They had to do a 180 in a sense, but they salvaged it in season two. Now these other seasons, they're doing this on a third. All right,
No, they didn't
I'm
salvage
looking
it.
forward to
They
this end.
doubled down. They doubled down on Tila. They doubled down on Tila on Tila being the girl boss. Oh my god.
Oh man, Tila with the undercut. Remember how she changed her look
Oh god. And
with the undercut?
what I love about that show is what I love about Masters of the Universe of that depiction was the very first episode. Like Tila just loses her mind and is like, "Oh, I'm." They make her master of arms or whatever, and she's like, "No, you guys lied to me," and she throws it away. And then later on in the
That's a
season,
betrayal.
somebody else does, a male character does it, and they're like, "This is the worst thing that's ever happened." And I'm like, Tila just did that like last episode, and you didn't say jack to her, but you're gonna yell at this guy because he doesn't want to do it. Get out! I'm like, get out of here. I was like, you can't give her a pass and then yell at somebody, and then she does the same thing later on. I'm like, oh my god. I was like, you can't
By the
do
way, the
this.
voice of Tila is. By the way, the voice of Tila is Sarah Michelle Gellar,
Sarah
or should I
Michelle
say
Gellar.
Sarah Michelle Prince? Sarah Michelle Prince. She changed. She took Cousin's last name.
Yep.
Talk about a couple that's still together. You know, not like any other celebrity marriage.
And and then on top of it, and spoiler alert, because nobody's gonna watch that show. No, I mean it's been out for a while, so if you don't know, not to mention they killed He-Man in the first 5 minutes of the show.
With a prison
The
shame.
He-Man show
With a
where
prison
you
shame.
kill He-Man
With a
in
prison
the
shame.
first 5 minutes, and then you kill him at the end of the first. Then you kill him again. They killed him twice in the same show.
What in the all types of blue hell?
What were you think? Like, and Kevin
Hey,
Smith
they had to bring him back.
Kevin Smith is a smart guy. Like he's a good guy. Like Clerks is awesome. Clerks 2 is awesome. Like
How about Jay and Silent Bob the reboot?
all of that stuff. He's a good writer. I just want to know what I want to know what he had, and it probably would have gone over fine. But then Kevin Smith lost his mind, and when it got leaked, oh, by the way, the He-Man show is not going to have He-Man, and Kevin Smith was like, no, it's going to have He-Man. He-Man's going to be in. He's going to be around. And then they put out the trailer that showed all of the He-Man stuff, and you're like, oh, so it's going to have He-Man in it. All right, Kevin Smith wasn't like, you watched the show, and all of the stuff they showed was from the first 5 minutes of the show.
Season 2, they had to salvage it, you know. But like I said, it was what it was. But you know what? We can blame it on his daughter, because you remember when they did the Jay and Silent Bob reboot movie,
Mm-hmm.
and they took shots at the whole Pop Man and Chronic characters both becoming all woke and such. And of course, you know, Jay's daughter is played by Kevin Smith's actual daughter, Harley Quinn Smith. That's her actual name, Harley Quinn Smith. And there was a scene where he's just cussing her out, saying, "You ruined my life! You ruined my life!" Well, that is your daughter. That was her purpose in life, is to ruin your life. Not to mention your wife was she's your daughter. She's meant to ruin your life. Not to mention your wife was in the show. I was in the movie. You had him as Kevin Smith, and you had Kevin Smith as Silent Bob. Jason Mewes. Oh man, Jason Mewes even had his own daughter in the show in that movie. I guess they just wanted to give Jay and Silent Bob just one last hoorah, I guess.
But these things, the overall point of pointing out all of this stuff, the overall point is, and Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe is a perfect example of this. These things could work. They can. You could have done that. You could have made a Tila show, and everybody would have said, all right, it's a Tila show. Okay. But you deliberately made Tila a horrible character. You made her a horrible person. You made her somebody that anybody who watches that show, I haven't heard one person that's like, oh, I love Tila's such a great character. Everybody who watches that show is like,
really.
everybody who has watched that show is like, Tila's a bitch. Why would anyone want to follow? Why would anyone want to root for that character? And you made her the star of the show, so nobody's gonna follow her because she's a terribly written character.
I think the only person whose character was who really stole the show was Mark Hamill's portrayal of Skeletor.
Well, Hamill as a villain is old. Hamill as a villain and a voice actor is always going to be good. He's one of the best. He's one of the best voice actors of all time,
especially with his portrayal of the Joker opposite the late Kevin Conroy's cover.
Batman the animated series, one of the best. One of. Definitely on the list of one of the best cartoons of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we were talking about it. It's on. That's on HBO Max.
Batman the animated series. It's also on Netflix. It's on Netflix here.
It's on. It's on. They have DC. They have all of DC because they own Warner Brothers. It is all on HBO Max. So that's how I watch. I watched that. I went to watch it the other day. I was like, I'll just watch it. I'll watch the first season and try to get into it. You want to know how long the first season is? It's 46. It's 46 episodes. I was like, wait, what? I was like, I can't even watch the whole. It's amazing how I was like, whoa. 46. I thought it was going to be like, it'll be, I'll watch like 8 episodes maybe. No, 46 episodes. I was like, yeah, this is crazy. But that show is great. That show made it stepped up the level of everything. But these people don't know how to write characters that we like. If you write a character that we like, and it's kind of why I wanted Brianna to be on with us, because Brianna is, and I love how everybody says, oh, it's, females don't know, or, females can write for, are there females out there that like Marvel? Yes, there are. I know a bunch of them. The problem's not that girls don't like superhero. They don't like superhero shows. They don't like science fiction. There are females that like it. The problem is they're bringing in writers and directors who don't like superheroes. They need to listen to the writers. The writers of She-Hulk literally said, we don't care about the superheroes genre. We want to burn it to the ground. That's a literal quote from Jessica Gao. And Kevin Feige said, yeah, go ahead, write a superhero show. Like, she said she was going to burn it to the ground, and she did. Like, listen to them. The director of Echo says she doesn't like the character of Echo. Listen to her and go, yeah, you might be a good writer, you might be a good director, but you're not a good director for this show. So let's just not do that. It's so dumb. There are people out there, I guarantee you, there are people out there that love these franchises that could help you. And every time you see it, it's like season 2 of Rings of Power. Every episode was directed by a woman. Why are you telling us that? Why are you telling us that before it comes out? It's because they know it's going to be full of garbage. It's so that they know they're trying to shield themselves from criticism. But guess what? That doesn't work anymore. That doesn't fly. People are seeing through that. And they're able to point out all the flaws. It's because these people don't like the genre. I mean, G4 TV is gone now. It is done. Why? Because one of their requirements, and we heard about this. I heard about this from Chris Gore, who used to work on G4 TV, was part of Attack of the Show, which was one of the greatest shows of all time. I used to watch it all the time. I used to watch it before I went to bed in college. Attack of the Show was great. Chris Gore said he had people that tried to get jobs at G4. The first question they asked was, how would you kill off Batman? Excuse me? You want to kill off Batman. If you want to write a Batman story, you can't kill off Batman. That's the worst thing you could do. Batman is one of the highest sellers of comic books of all time.
Just like what they did with the video game. What's the name of that one video game? The one with
Suicide Squad kills the Justice League.
No, not that one. The other one. With Robin, Batgirl, Nightwing, even Red Hood.
Arkham. It's got to be one of the Arkhams.
Arkham Knight. Arkham something, yeah.
I think it's Arkham Heights. It's either Arkham Heights or Arkham City, one of those.
No. The Arkham City was like, from the original Arkham trilogy. I'm talking like something out of, it's like in a separate, a parallel multiverse or something like that. Oh. Batman's gone. Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Hood, they have to get together. Ensemble. Is that something Arkham something? I
mean, it's funny because, but I bring up that G4 story because G4 died. G4 is dead now. It doesn't exist. But they asked that question, and when you go back and look at every single entity from there, Batwoman, absolute disaster. Why? What did they do in the first episode? Killed off Batman. Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights was a train wreck. What did they do in the first episode? Killed off Batman. Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. Killed off Batman. The game is absolute trash. It's not. Again, we talked about this before. One time.
That's a video game, by the way.
Second time is a move. Third time, third time is a trend. Notice the trend. If you kill off Batman, your game, your movie, your everything is going to go to shit. So just don't do it. Like, don't do that. But again,
developed Gotham Knights. It was developed by Warner Brothers Games Montreal, part of Warner Brothers Games. I'm like, why would you put such a game out? And the Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. I'm like, what on earth?
That one just came. That Suicide Kills the Justice League just came out. It came out like probably a month ago. And
how many people got refunds? I wonder.
And I watched Mahler play it. I watched a playthrough on YouTube. I mean, it's a story that could work. It's absolute trash, and the way that they treat the characters is just absolutely. It's just dumb. It was just dumb. It was a dumb idea. But
it's the ninth generation console too. Good Lord.
Back to the topic at hand is when we started this with The Witcher. Blood Origins, probably the worst TV show, probably the worst 4 episodes of television I've ever seen in my entire life. Absolute garbage.
It made absolutely no sense.
Didn't make any sense. Didn't even attach to the lore. It was hilariously bad. But but what we were talking about is people that if people liked the IP they were working for, They wouldn't have written they wouldn't have written Witcher Blood Origin. They wouldn't have let that even see the light of day if they cared about the IP that they're writing. And that's the difference. These people don't care about what they're writing. They just want
No
to put
respect
all
for
their
the
they just want to put all their nonsense in
and
they
get
just want
paid
to put
doing
all
it.
their nonsense into it.
And get paid doing it. You know, which just shows you the lack of respect, and you're wondering what is going on in the entertainment business. You know, if you dive a little deeper, you realize something's going on there that we don't know about. It's like who is doing what, who is destroying what, why.
But
It's
that's
just
the
like
that and that's one of the weird things is those people are getting. It's why we bring it up all the time. It's why people like me will bring it up all the time because they're getting paid. Like you said, they're getting paid for this, and they're getting paid. And I watch again. I'll bring up another YouTuber, Disparu. I watch Disparu all the time. Talk about what writers and directors and these people what they're paying people, and the writers went on strike and all this stuff. What they're getting paid for, what they're getting paid is an exorbitant amount, and then they make this garbage, and it's like, and then they have the audacity to say, "Well, you're just not watching it because you don't respect our what we were trying to get across. You just don't respect it." No, you're right. We don't. I don't respect what you wrote because what you wrote is garbage.
we don't know
I don't.
what you were trying to get across. Oh, well, was there something you were trying to actually get across? Make it make sense. You got to question them, and question the producers, question the directors, the showrunner.
I don't.
Everybody should be held accountable.
I personally do not care about about the color. I don't care about the color of skin of what I read. I don't care about what gender they are. I don't care what their sexual orientation is. I do not care about any of that. What I care about is,
No.
are they a good person or not? Are they someone I can root for? Are they someone that I should be getting behind? And how do you portray that? You portray that by their actions, the things I see them do. If I see them being a nice person, see them being respectful, I will respect them as a character. If I see them being a disrespectful asshole,
I didn't know we were going to be touching
I'm
though.
going to treat them that way. Like, and I'll bring up an example, like in Ahsoka, where they want me to like Sabine Wren, yet in the very first scene that they show her, she's supposed to be giving a speech, and she just bails and leaves and doesn't give the speech and is like, "Nope, I don't want to do it." And I'm the whole time I'm sitting there going, "Why didn't she just give the speech then leave?" Or why didn't you just show her giving the speech and in the middle getting too upset to give it and having to run off the stage? That would have made me go, wow, she really cares. She's a caring person. I feel for her. I'm now empathetic to her situation. When she just bails off and yeets and goes, I don't want to do it, and you can't force me to do it, that just makes me go, you're that just makes me go, you're a bitch, and I don't want to. I don't like you. You just disrespected an entire group of people, so I'm not going to respect you for the rest of the show. Again, this is the first thing we saw from her. Immediately took me out of it. The Maya Lopez show, which is called Echo, but I call it the Maya Lopez show because she's not Echo. She doesn't have Echo's powers. I don't know who she is. Maya Lopez, very first scene in the show. Yes, she shot Kingpin. She has no remorse for what she's done. No remorse for putting her family in danger. No remorse for anything she does the entire show. And the whole time I'm like, you're a horrible character. I don't like you. I'm not going to root for you. Obi-Wan Kenobi with Reva. First scene, she cuts a lady's hand off for no reason. Why am I rooting for? I'm not rooting for her because she's an evil. She's an evil character. I'm not rooting for her. I don't. She doesn't respect anybody. You earn respect. You're not given it, and that's what these writers don't understand.
Context to any actions. There's no reasoning. There's no explanation why, what happened, why some person is in this position that they're in. None of that. Just straight to the point.
And just speaking from the aspect of somebody who's trying to write a show and trying to make up characters. When I was writing my characters, the very first thing I looked at is the very first time my main character is on the screen, I want people to like them. I want people to be able to relate to them. I want people to be able to say, hey, this guy may have some flaws. He may be a little bit of a jerk, but he's lighthearted. I can follow him. I can get behind him. That was what I wanted to do with my 4 main characters when I wrote them. I wanted them to be likable. I wanted each person to say, I wanted everybody to look at one of my 4 characters and be able to respond to one of them. Not think, well, that guy's a jerk. I don't want to watch. If they're going to be in the show, I don't want to watch it. Nobody's going to watch the rest of your show. That's how it works. So every time I'm watching one of these bad shows, you can see the character that they want to push. They just don't know how to write it. They don't know how to make you like them. And that's all you have to do. Write a likable character and we'll get behind him. Tony Stark is a despicable person. When you really look at him, he's a despicable person. But because he's written to be likable, you like him. And because he recognizes his flaws and works through them, you sympathize with him. So because he was written correctly, because he was written with an arc that you could get behind. Today's characters don't have that. And it's so bad. But that being said, we have been talking for almost 2 hours now. So I'm going to call it. I'm going to throw in the towel. Diggy, anything you want to get off your chest before we go?
Well, I just want to say this open channel with Chris Beads is brought to you by Screwpaw VPN. The VPN all the way out of left field. And bum leg orthopedics. The only thing keeping certain athletes intact. That's bum leg orthopedics, folks. Oh my leg, oh my leg, oh my leg, oh my leg. Besides that, I'm just saying, I'm just glad to be up here, glad to have a conversation. Good to see you, Chris. And hopefully this stream doesn't get canceled. We can watch the playbacks and everything.
Oh, well,
the guidelines.
Hopefully, I think we were all right. Diggy, I want to thank you for joining me. It was a blast. It was a blast, man. And like I said,
thanks for having me.
Look for us in the future. We're not going to be. I'm not going to be regular with it. I'm going to be kind of. It's going to be kind of spotty. It's going to be kind of like. It's not going to be an every week kind of thing. It's going to be pretty much when the mood strikes me. Have a show so that we don't fall into the same trap we did before where it was burnout. So we're going to try to space things out, try to do things the right way this time. But like I said, we are going to be doing a lot more of these. We're going to be doing a lot more open discussions and a lot more talking about the writing process, about because entertainment is all entwined. Sports is entertainment. Hollywood is entertainment. TV shows are entertainment. It's all interconnected and they're all bleeding into each other. So if we don't stop the bleeding now, it's going to flow into other things. And that's why we're taking this to the next level, as well as I'm going to be presenting a lot more of my show as again, once it gets picked up, I'll be able to tell everybody everything about it. But until then, I kind of got to keep things close to the vest. But I'm going to talk about my process, how I went about things. And I'm going to show you that this is not, this is not bad writers doing bad writing. This is it's deliberate. What they're doing is deliberate. And it's obvious. Once you start to recognize it, you'll recognize it in everything. Once you recognize it in one thing, you'll recognize it in everything. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do that on this show. We're gonna pick out different things, different topics, talk about them, and do them in this format of talk about them openly and just air everything, and people can pick and choose what they want. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the stuff. Push us to where we need to be. But it's good to just have these open conversations. And Diggy, I thank you for coming on and engaging with us. Again, we started talking about the Super Bowl and we ended up talking about European football. That's what we do.
Who would have thunk it?
That's what we do around here. All right, man. I'll talk to you next time. Like I said, keep posted to the chat or keep posted to the channel, and you'll know when the next one's gonna be. So, and as always, it's an open invitation to everybody. Anybody could jump in at any point. So we're always glad to have people on. So, all right, that'll do it for us, guys. Check us out, and we'll talk to you next time. End the stream. End the stream.